All of this and more with the Republican Senator James Risch. He's a key member of both the Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committees. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf. Glad to be here.
So react to the breaking news. Our top story, a federal judge now blocking part of President Trump's order to take away funds from so-called sanctuary cities all over the country, whether in Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, all over the country. How much of a setback is this to the Trump administration?
Well, first of all, not fully unexpected. I mean, every time the president does something like this, it's pretty easy to find a left-leaning judge somewhere in the country that would block it at the lower level. You got a circuit court and a Supreme Court above that, so these kinds of things, every time the president does something, he's going to get sued over it, and they don't unravel till you get higher up.
His travel bans, travel ban 1, then the revised travel ban, both of those were at least stayed by federal judges, sure, including higher level federal judges, and they're still on hold. He can't go forward with that travel ban. This could stick around for a while as well. It's pretty embarrassing, though, when these federal judges come in and say to the president, to the attorney general, what you have done may be unconstitutional.
Yeah, well, look, all of us that are in public office do things and expect to be challenged by them, and it's up to the courts to make a determination as to what's constitutional and what isn't. When it comes to the travel ban, obviously the issuance of visas is totally within the discretion of the second branch of government, not the first, not the third, but the second branch. I doubt the federal courts are going to take over the discretionary issuing of travel visas to the United States. It's got to get higher up in the courts before you get some clarity on that issue.
Well, at this point, do you think the Trump administration, the Justice Department, should rewrite this latest order on the so-called sanctuary cities, preventing federal funds from going to those cities, as long as they occasionally go ahead and protect some of these undocumented immigrants?
You know, I haven't read it, but obviously after you get to court and you read a court order and see what it is that the courts caught the court's fancy, you can many times go back and correct it, as with legislation or anything else. But that's going to be up to them. Good lawyers, they'll handle it.
Based on what you know on this other breaking story we're following, Senator, involving the former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, do you believe that he may have broken the law, that he may have committed a felony?
I don't know. Obviously, I've seen the same stories you have, and it's possible. Look, in the position that he was in, we have some very clear and very strict laws about what people who have been in a position of national security can and can't do, particularly when they're holding a clearance. The rules are very specific. They're very clear. Obviously, the people in the House who've reviewed those think there's reason to believe that. But again, that's not the job of the Congress to prosecute. That'll be up to the Justice Department. I have every confidence that if indeed the law was broken, that he can and will and should be held to account for it.
It's not just the Democrats who are making these insinuations. Right. As you know, Jason Chaffetz, he's a Republican congressman from your neighboring state of Utah. He's the chairman of the House Oversight Committee. If he says there's no evidence Michael Flynn was complying with the regulations, may have committed a felony, that's a big deal, right?
It is a big deal, but in America, always you're presumed to be innocent until otherwise. And I think, like you say, there's reason to look at this, where it ends up. Let's let the facts come out, and then we can all make a decision.
That's fair enough. Senator, do you think the White House, though, bears some responsibility for not properly vetting Michael Flynn? It was so well known. He visited Russia, had dinner with Putin, sat at a table. We all saw the video of him on so many occasions during the campaign celebrating President Putin. There you see Putin at that event. This is in December of 2015. You see General Flynn sitting at one of the main tables right there. Everyone knew he went to Moscow, so there was a problem there. Maybe they didn't do a good job vetting him. What do you think?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right. We all knew what the situation was. The national media reported that he was over there at this celebration of Russian TV, who operates in the United States, by the way. So that particular fact was well known. As far as the vetting's concerned, look, I was a governor. I know how you do these vetting things. It's a lot easier to do at the state level than it is at the national and international level. You need good people to do the vetting. I would think they'd have asked the questions, but I guess when the documents come out, we'll get a better feel as to whether or not the vetting was proper or not.
Yeah, it's not just what the reported $45,000 he got for that speaking engagement for RT, Russian TV, when he went over to Moscow, but more than $500,000 from various Turkish elements. He only registered as a foreign agent after he left the White House, after he was fired as national security advisor. They're looking at that as well. That's appropriate, right?
It is appropriate they look at it. This whole thing doesn't have a good feel to it by any stretch. But having said that, again, we need to not rush to judgment on this and get all the facts in front of us. But it doesn't have a good feel to it.
Because it is significant also when you see the Republican chairman of the Oversight Committee in the House, Jason Chaffetz, and the ranking Democrat, the ranking member, Elijah Cummings. They're both on the same page as far as Michael Flynn is concerned. You don't see that all that often nowadays, but that's significant.
Significant, and you're right, you don't see that all the time.
Stand by, Senator. We've got more to discuss, including there's some late-breaking developments involving North Korea. Want to pick your brain on that? We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're back with Republican Senator James Risch. He's a key member of both the Foreign Relations and Intelligence Committees. Senator, I need you to stand by. We're getting an update right now on U.S. tensions with North Korea. Kim Jong-un's regime putting on a new show of military force with a U.S. guided missile submarine nearby and other American warships closing in on the region. Let's bring in our Chief National Security Correspondent, Jim Sciutto. What are you learning tonight, Jim?
Well, tonight, North Korea taunting, threatening the U.S., saying that Donald Trump is just short of, in one of their party newspapers, just short of lighting the fuse on total war. This, of course, not uncommon rhetoric from North Korea, but right now, lawmakers have been briefed on the threat, as well as seasoned North Korean experts increasingly concerned about the level of tension between North Korea and the West. From the U.S. and North Korea escalating shows of force. Pyongyang carrying out a massive artillery fire drill to mark the 85th anniversary of the North Korean Army. While the USS Michigan guided missile submarine made a visible port call in South Korea, and the USS Carl Vinson carrier is now finally approaching the region.
What's very clear is that they're pursuing a nuclear ballistic capability and continuing to carry out tests to give them that capability of reaching not just other countries in the region, but possibly the United States. And that is, to put it mildly, a game changer.
As President Trump continues his outreach to the leaders of China and Japan, he questioned the power of the North Korean leader, telling a group of conservative reporters, quote, "I'm not so sure he's so strong like he says he is. I'm not so sure at all." However, after meeting with fellow UN Security Council members, he discussed further economic sanctions rather than more dramatic actions such as military strikes.
The Council must be prepared to impose additional and stronger sanctions on North Korean nuclear and ballistic missile programs. This is a real threat to the world, whether we want to talk about it or not.
Senator John McCain, who had dinner with the president last night, said Mr. Trump has not yet decided whether he will order military action.
I don't think he's reached that decision yet. I think I'm sure he appreciates that, as his military advisors have told me, that's the ultimately last option, and it can be very expensive. I'm sure he's exploring all options, but that would be the last one.
All 100 members of the U.S. Senate will visit the White House Wednesday for a briefing by Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Joseph Dunford. The urgent focus, what will and what can the administration do next? An administration official tells CNN that President Trump himself may make an appearance at that briefing for senators at the White House tomorrow. But as this is happening, the Pentagon telling CNN, a defense official, that there are signs at the site of North Korea's nuclear test site of renewed activity, which would mean the possibility that a nuclear test, another nuclear blast there, may be put off. The activity around there normally stops if a new nuclear test is imminent, but the Pentagon saying they are seeing now signs of renewed activity there. That risk might be less so now, Wolf, at least of a nuclear blast at that test facility.
All right, Jim Sciutto reporting for us. Jim, thank you very much. We're back with Senator James Risch. Senator, President Trump says he's, in his words, not so sure that Kim Jong-un is as strong as he says he is. Do you think he could be underestimating the North Korean leader?
Well, it's hard to say. I've seen intelligence reports on both sides of that issue, but I can tell you this. The administration is right in the middle of this. They know what a serious situation they have in their hands. Earlier this afternoon, I spoke with the Vice President, Pence, who just returned at 7 o'clock this morning from 10 days in the region. And this is a serious situation. As you reported, the North Koreans are in the process of, if they haven't already, developed a nuclear weapon to deliver to the United States. The number one responsibility of the United States government is to protect our people. And right now, the North Koreans pose the most significant threat to us here in the United States. All options are on the table. Now, obviously, we prefer the preferred solution is a diplomatic solution, but all options are on the table. I think
when you say that, Senator, all options are on the table. What exactly does that mean? We hear that all the time. But are you saying a preemptive U.S. military strike to knock out their capability? That's on the table.
All options are on the table, and obviously that is an option. But that is as Senator McCain just said, that is the last option that anyone wants to look to. On the other hand, we can't have these people possessing a nuclear weapon and the delivery system available to drop it on where you're sitting in New York City or where I'm sitting here in D.C. or anywhere else in the United States. I think one of the stories here that isn't getting quite the attention that it should is China's role in all of this. You know, North Korea has been an ally of China for a long time. China looked at them as an asset. They don't look at them as an asset anymore. They look at them as a real liability. The son right now, who's in charge there, Kim Jong-un, his father and grandfather were very close to China, good friends with China. They liked each other. With the son, not so much. And the control isn't there that China had over the other two. The Chinese there's reason to believe that the Chinese have concluded that they're going to have to do something about this finally. And they have the ability to do something about this because of the leverage they have with North Korea. I think they've come to the conclusion that if they don't, that the United States is going to have to do something about it. And that's the last thing the Chinese want is us involved in something over there. The Chinese really want stability, just as we want stability there. And so there's ways that they can do this diplomatically that can get the job done. And I think I have reason to believe that they're turning to efforts in that regard. We've actually seen in recent days some ratcheting back of things that North Korea threatened to do and then ratcheted down considerably.
Well, we'll see what the Chinese do. We know the president is really working on his relationship with the Chinese president to get China to be more supportive of the U.S. objectives as far as North Korea is concerned. Senator Risch, as usual, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.